This video is documenting the prediction that the main U.S. stock indexes, the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the S&P 500, will make their all-time peak highs on February 6th, 2026, and then begin their biggest crashes in all of history. The date that this video is posted proves that this prediction is being made ahead of time, as does this time-stamped email and forensic notes PDF document. If you are skeptical for some reason, please email me and I will forward these to you. Welcome. This video is predicting that the main stock market indexes at the New York Stock Exchange will make their all-time peak highs and then begin their biggest crashes in all of history on February 6th, 2026. This video, as you can see, this video is posted prior to February 6th, but as we can see, this email was composed on January 28th. In this email, I will document reasons for how this prediction is known ahead of time. And it is these reasons that make this prediction from God. First of all, predicting the precise date of a peak, an all-time peak in the stock market, and then subsequent biggest crash in history is, of course, in itself a prediction that couldn't possibly have been made unless it was inspired by God. But if you are an extremist agnostic atheist, the reasons for this prediction that I'll be explaining will completely prove the matter. Because as you will see, what I'm about to explain could not have possibly been concocted in the imagination of a human being. No one is creative enough to come up with these reasons that I'll be talking about. And that will be very clear. It'll be beyond clear. To conclude otherwise would be not only irrational, but it would make you a fool. That said, human beings are not rational. By nature, human beings are not rational, especially when it comes to their worldview. There's something in psychology called belief perseverance, which shows that when someone is confronted with information that contradicts their worldview, they block it out. It goes in one ear and out the other. They do this unconsciously even to preserve their worldview. Because changing one's worldview is extremely uncomfortable. Because one's worldview is the person's foundation in life. Their entire life changes when they change their worldview. And so if you have been an agnostic, atheist, religionist your entire life, you are not likely to want to all of a sudden change that worldview voluntarily. And so you will have belief perseverance. And that's the only explanation for not accepting the truth after this prediction comes to pass, after you have heard the explanations for this prediction. The problem is, life is a test of humility. The opposite of pride, which in the Bible is the root of sin. And everyone is a sinner, and everyone is full of pride, which, by the way, is the root behind the belief perseverance. It's spiritual. It's pride. Life is a test of humility, and you will have to humbly accept that you were wrong. And you were wrong to follow the crowd. The crowd being the majority in Western culture today that have accepted the lie. And it is a blatant lie, it is beyond blatant, and propaganda, and it is beyond propaganda, regarding materialism. this outdated idea from the 19th century, or rather the 18th century. This idea that the material world can explain, materialism explains our reality. It's absurd. Everyone knows it's absurd. Everyone knows this is absurd. But why do people continue with the lies? And why is it that the early 20th century science that contradicts materialism isn't talked about and is forbidden through criminal action from being, for example, taught in schools? The evidence for an intelligent designer of the universe, which is overwhelming and very clear. But why is it that we insist as Westerners in this Western culture to continue with this absurdity of materialism and agnostic atheism, which the core belief of this religion, like any other religion that has a core belief, is that, well, there may or may not be a God, but it's not possible to know because there is no evidence, which is the biggest lie of all time. And it's not some esoteric secret knowledge. It's everywhere. It's in the mainstream 20th century science even that you have purposefully ignored when mentioned and have not looked into it. But even, for example, the Big Bang proves that the universe had a beginning, and no, the absurd physicists that are attempting to circle the wagon or circle the wagons around the materialism worldview with their ridiculous theories about string theory, which the other physicists, which 1/3 of astrophysicists are believers in a God, are shaking their heads at the others. What are you talking about? This isn't science anymore. And that's because they need to do these sorts of things to support their false worldview. They're religionists, and they do this sort of, anyway, I'm getting off subject here. So let's get back to what I was saying. So anyway, this prediction will not only prove that there is a God, but specifically, and very importantly, because polls show that only about 13% of people are actually atheists or agnostic atheists. The majority of people, when asked, will say, well, do you believe in God? Well, yes, but not the God of the Bible. The majority of people in the West today have replaced monotheism with pantheism, or, if you will, the Indian religion, East India, Hinduism, New Age ideas. God being, for example, the universe itself, which the Big Bang disproves, incidentally. So, in other words, this prediction that is from God, and these reasons that I'll be explaining that are from God, as you will see, proves that the righteous Christian God of the Bible is the true God, not any other God. And no, all religions are not different paths up the same mountain. BS. They fundamentally conflict with each other. Pantheism and monotheism, for example, are fundamentally conflicting. God can't be a personal being and an impersonal energy that is the universe itself at the same time. God cannot be holy, which is a Hebrew word which means separate from the creator of the creation. He cannot be separate from and the creator of the creation and the creation itself at the same time. Okay? It's philosophy of logic 101. A can't equal not A. Well, the same applies to the main branches of monotheism. They also fundamentally conflict with each other. The Muslim religion, for example, is obsessed with how Jesus was just a prophet. That's because the Muslim religion is from Satan, and being the king of lies, confronted with this gospel of Christianity, would choose one way to counter it with a religion supposedly for Arab people that would come against Christ. And it's very simple and logical. He would develop a religion that says God can't have a son and Jesus was just a prophet. That's why that religion is absolutely obsessed with it. I mean, really, if you want to boil down to Islam to what it really is, it's a religion that says that Jesus is just a prophet. I mean, that's the basic thing about Islam. Okay, so that's it. Anyway, you get my point. That's the purpose of this prediction. That's one of the purposes for this prediction. The other purpose for this prediction that is from God is to prove the controversial things that I am saying on this channel. And what I mean by that is there is absolutely zero debate at all, case closed, on all of the controversial things that I am saying on this channel. Because as I'll be explaining, or as I explain in these videos on this channel, these things are overwhelmingly proven to be true through God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which is only being explained on this channel. And God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections will be proven to be true when this prediction comes to pass, which is that the stock market will reach its all-time peak high on February 6th and then begin the biggest stock market crash in history. And one of the controversial things that I'll be talking about in this video and on this channel is the identity of the Antichrist, which disproves the silliness of the evangelicals that love to play the Antichrist guessing game. And this is rooted in the modern evangelical heretical salvation doctrine that has them interpret 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and what is holding back the Antichrist as the Holy Spirit. And so that's why they love to play the Antichrist guessing game. But God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections has overwhelmingly been revealing for many, many years the identities of the two Antichrists. Furthermore, the first of the two Antichrists' identity is overwhelmingly clear from Bible prophecy, including Old Testament prophecy. It is actually shameful that knowledge has been lost, because there wouldn't have been a Protestant Reformation without that knowledge, because the Pope is the first of the two Antichrists. The second of the two Antichrists is Barack Obama. Okay, and now when this prediction comes to pass, it is time, if you are an evangelical that is interested in Bible prophecy, and you love to play the evangelical Antichrist guessing game, it's time to stop. To not appreciate this is to not appreciate this prediction that is from God and this video, and you might as well turn it off now. You are wasting your time. And I mean it. Either turn this video off and stop wasting your time, or stop playing the Antichrist guessing game and wasting your time. So let's get into it. King Charles III hints at the third term for the Antichrist king, Barack Obama. Barack will get a third term through Queen Michelle Obama's election as the president. Michelle and Barack were born exactly 128 weeks apart. This is because G128 in the Greek concordance for the Bible is the word the Ethiopian. And this hints at Barack, who was born in East Africa near Ethiopia. And literally, he was born near the border of Ethiopia in southwest Kenya. The Ethiopian in the Bible was a servant of the Queen of Egypt. By the way, that's a controversial thing that I just said, and it is 100% true when this prediction comes to pass. Am I clear? Do you get it? God has given me the authority and a voice through this prediction, and I know far better than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God, and it is to prove the controversial things that I am saying, which have been overwhelmingly proven to be true through God's true big picture of signs, patterns, and connections, which will be proven to be true when this prediction comes to pass. Okay? I don't want to explain anything more because I'd have to take another whatever amount of minutes to explain something or two or three or four to confirm for you that Barack Obama was born in Kenya, but that's not the subject of this video. Okay? And so I have to tell you sternly and authoritatively what's up. And what is up? What's the deal here? The lowdown is God has given me a voice through this prediction to prove what I have just said, and there is no debate. Zero. Stop. He was born in Kenya. And he is the unconstitutional president. Which is why, in the beginning, Trump, God's trumpet, trumpeted this and in his rise to power through calling out Barack Obama on his birth certificate. If you recall, that's really the beginning of the rise of Trump, God's trumpet. All right. So the Ethiopian in the Bible was a servant of the Queen of Egypt, as in Queen Obama, or Michelle Obama. Shortly after Obama's inauguration, he went down to Cairo, Egypt. And by the way, the Ethiopian was on his way to Cairo, Egypt in the Bible. Barack Obama went down to Cairo, Egypt in order to tell the Muslim world that America is no longer a Christian nation because he is the Antichrist. We Are the World, a song made for food relief for Ethiopians, was recorded on the date 128, as in G128, the word the Ethiopian. That's not a coincidence, right? The historic big deal, this We Are the World song that went number one, huge, massive hit, broke records of all sorts. I forget which ones, like longest period or most records sold or something like that, okay? And the big deal about it is that all of the biggest stars in the pop music world at the time came together one night after the American Music Awards, because they were all gathered for that awards gala, and went across the street or something like that to Kenny Rogers' studio, because they were all together at the same time, and then they recorded this hit with like over 40 or something artists that were like the biggest of the time to record We Are the World. And that happened on a particular date. It was on the date 128, which hints at G128, the word for the Ethiopian. And the purpose of this record that was recorded was for food relief for Ethiopians. Now, speaking of food relief, the Ethiopian, Barack Obama, who was born exactly 128 weeks before Michelle Obama, as in the queen that the Ethiopian was the servant of in the Bible, the Queen of Egypt. Okay, Barack Obama will Barack Obama will take complete control of the food supply and ration the food. So that's what's also hinted at with the food relief for the Ethiopians and all of this connection to Barack Obama here. I could go into more. I mean, Augustus Caesar took control of the food supply in 22 BC after his uncle was assassinated in 44 BC, which hinted the 44th president and the coming assassination of Trump. And the complete control of the food supply, 22 BC, because 22 symbolizes the mark of the Antichrist. In the Civil War, in the Roman Civil War, that saw Augustus Caesar come to power, Mark Antony, as in mark of the Antichrist, went down to Egypt, as in the Antichrist described in the book of Isaiah after God warned, woe to those who go down to Egypt, which is why Barack Obama went down to Egypt right after becoming the president. Okay, and anyway, that was in 31 BC, and the woe to those who go down to Egypt and the description of the Antichrist is in Isaiah chapter 31. All right, so anyway, and also Obama was born in August, which is why Caesar Augustus took control of the food supply, because Obama, who was born in August, will. Okay, just thought I would add that there. All right, so this date of the recording of We Are the World was exactly 4 times 4 times 4 weeks after the Capitol building bombing, when the Capitol building in Washington, D.C. was bombed by the May 19th Communist Organization, which Barack Obama was a member of at the time. And that's another controversial thing that I've just stated, and it's a fact when this prediction comes to pass. And I know more than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. Barack Obama was a member of the May 19th Communist Organization at the time that it bombed the Capitol building, and that is a fact. I hope I am clear. If I'm not, you don't get it. You're wasting your time with this video. The 4 times 4 times 4 weeks exact is obviously a hint at the 44th president, which is, by the way, a confirmation for the fact that Barack Obama was a member of the May 19th Communist Organization when it bombed the Capitol building on November 7th, 1983. The thing about that is that this May 19th Communist Organization, which was an offshoot of the Weather Underground organization founded by Bill Ayers, was disbanded in '85, which is the year that Obama moved to Chicago. Not by coincidence, because he needed something else to do. And also Bill Ayers was from Chicago, but Obama was following his father's footsteps. His biological father, who he had a relationship with in Hawaii, who was a communist from Chicago, because Obama Sr. wasn't his biological father. Let me just get into that a little bit. So Barack Obama, his mother, when she was 18, was knocked up after she was seduced by Frank Marshall Davis, the leader of the communist movement in Hawaii, who was a communist in Chicago before he moved to head the communist movement in Hawaii. All right, and Obama's mother's father, Obama's grandfather, on his mother's side, was a spook. He was a CIA agent, and that's why he was throughout his career moved around the country, supposedly as a furniture salesman, which is absurd. Furniture salesmen don't move around the country and drag their family with them. Okay, and so anyway, that's how the communist Frank Marshall Davis and Barack Obama's mother, that's how their life paths crossed each other. All right, and when she got pregnant, the grandfather of Obama was concerned that he would lose his job because of it. So at the time, abortions were illegal. Ironically, Hawaii was the first state to legalize abortions, and this is prophetic because Barack Obama, had abortions been legal, Barack Obama wouldn't have been born. The irony of ironies. The leader of the abortion-obsessed party would never have been born had abortions been legal. And the irony, too, is that he's from the 50th state, and the 50th state was the first to legalize abortions. It's all prophetic. Now, anyway, to hide the fact that to disguise this pregnancy of his daughter, he arranged for one of the students from Kenya, Obama Sr., to play the role of the father. And they were here, Obama Sr. and other Kenyans, in America, in Hawaii, as students, as part of the anti-communist effort in Kenya to bring in the elites and educate them, and at the same time hope to pass on American values type of thing, strategy. And so that's why Obama Sr. was in the US. Now, as part of the deal, Obama's father, Obama Sr., I should say, was his end of the deal was that he would be allowed to stay in the US and pursue his doctorate. So that's why he agreed. This also explains why, as we know, it's not conspiracy. As we know, Obama's mother and father never spent any time together. And that explains why, because it's Obama Sr. isn't his real father. This also explains, by the way, why Obama has nothing to do with his Obama Sr. side of the family. I mean, his brother, his half-brother, for example, wasn't even invited to his first inauguration. And the Kenyan side of his family really dislikes Obama now because they know that they played him and they were used. And they also know about the documentary that explains everything and how Frank Marshall Davis is the real biological father. And it's very clear. You need to watch that documentary. It's called Dreams from My Real Father, a play on the autobiography Dreams from My Father that was written by Bill Ayers. And that's not a conspiracy. Bill Ayers is on record and on video saying that he wrote the autobiography. And Barack Obama's political career was launched in Bill Ayers' living room, and that's also not a conspiracy. Bill Ayers being the founder of the Weather Underground, of which the May 19th Communist Organization was an offshoot. By the way, now I'm the only one that I know of that has put all the pieces together, because there's those that say, well, Frank Marshall Davis is the biological father, and they are correct. And then there's the others that say, well, that can't be the case because we know from evidence that Barack Obama was born in Kenya. And they are also correct. The missing piece that I put together is that Obama Sr. and Obama's mother, and obviously the grandfather probably too, were very smart to make the marriage and everything look real for immigration. They chose to have the birth in Kenya. That was a smart thing to do. Bill Ayers and Barack Obama used this, played on this. They knew that the US Americans would never elect an African American as the president, but they could get away with a smart sounding immigrant from Africa Black American president. They knew that, so they played on that. That's why Barack Obama took a trip to Kenya to visit his family that he knew wasn't his family, even when he went, in order to develop this autobiography for political purposes. The goal being, of course, to bring down America through a communist revolution type of thing. That's why Barack Obama got into politics with Bill Ayers. And once a communist, always a communist. Somewhere along the way, Obama loved the power, but the truth inside him is that once a communist, always a communist, unless they have a life-changing experience with Christ, because communism is evil and from Satan and is the spirit of Satan. But the true colors of Obama will come out in his next term during the crisis. I mean, we already know his true colors. We already know he's a communist and is seriously anti-American. All right? We already know that, those who are wise and understand things, right? And haven't, for example, fallen for the propaganda and is constant lying. And also those who have the wisdom to understand what the Democrat Party is today. All right, and so anyway, that's the background for you, okay? Now what I'm about to explain proves this also. Not only was the Ethiopian date of the recording of We Are the World, food relief for Ethiopia, exactly 4 times 4 weeks after the Capitol building bombing by the May 19th Communist Organization, which disbanded in '85, the year that Obama moved to Chicago to follow in his father's footsteps and be with Bill Ayers. But this date of the Capitol building bombing was 21,600 minutes after this date, which was the date of the barrack bombings in Beirut. Okay, the barrack bombings is the name of it. It's obviously hinted at Barack. Barack. The Barack bombings in Beirut, as in Barack Obama. Okay? So this name here, Barack, or the Barack bombings, is a clue here. It's a hint. It's an amazing thing here because this 21,600 minutes hints at the number 216, which is the equivalent of the name Barack in English gematria, which is from God. So the Barack bombings connect with the number that equals the name Barack to the May 19th Communist Organization bombing of the Capitol building, which proves that the Antichrist who was in the Capitol building and the White House was a member of the May 19th Communist Organization. That should be very clear. And Obama, furthermore, to further back this up, was born on the 216th day of the calendar year, and 216 is 6 times 6 times 6, which is, of course, the number of the Antichrist in Bible prophecy. Okay? And so there you have it. That's clear, right? That's why I put all this in brackets. It's not connected to what I want to get at in this video. This is the background to the We Are the World sign. Okay. Egypt, by the way, is the Middle East, which is where the Barack bombings were. So the We Are the World connection here, because of the G128, which is the Ethiopian that was on his way back to Egypt in the Bible. Again, because he was going back to serve the Queen of Egypt, and Michelle Obama being the Queen, American Pharaoh. Speaking of that, Isaiah 31 begins with, "Woe to those who go down to Egypt and rely on horses," which is why the first Triple Crown winner in 444 months was American Pharaoh in 2015. After Affirmed won the Triple Crown in 1978, and that affirms that Barack Obama, the 44th president, is the American Pharaoh. Anyway, you get my point. Okay, let's move on. King Apollyon will be released from the bottomless pit when it is opened with a key, as described in Bible prophecy. On the 41st anniversary, and 41 is the numeric value of the word key in simple English gematria, A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. Okay, and this is Revelation 9:11, King Apollyon. Okay, 41 is also the 13th prime number, which is at Revelation 13 and the beast, which is a metaphor in that chapter for the Antichrist, Obama, the second of the two beasts. Okay, so on the 41st anniversary of the prophetic recording of We Are the World, organized and composed by the Prince of Pop, was the premiere and release of King Charles's documentary, Finding Harmony, A King's Vision. Okay, harmony hints at music, and We Are the World. And this was on the 41st anniversary. And this is extremely prophetic, this 41 number, because of what I've just described. The documentary is about sinful humanity's harm to the planet and about environmentalism, which is a religion of the secular left that Pope Francis and Obama are leaders of. Now, the Francis, who is entombed in the Vatican, or outside it or whatever, the Vatican is symbolized by keys. And also Francis is the first of the two antichrists described in Revelation 13, and 41 is the 13th prime number. So we have King Charles's release of the film Finding Harmony, A King's Vision. All right. As in the music, 41 years, key opening the bottomless pit, King Apollyon, key symbolized the Vatican, Obama, Pope Francis, the two beasts in Revelation 13. Okay. The gala premiere at the King's Castle of King Charles's documentary, A King's Vision, is 1,088 days before the predicted gala return of Queen Michelle and Antichrist King Barack to the White House on January 20th, 2029. They'll have an inaugural ball in Trump's Golden Ballroom, all right, and all that, right? So why is 1,088 days relevant? It couldn't be more relevant because God is using this number 188 frequently in his signs because of H188 in the Hebrew concordance in the Bible, which is the word that means woe, exclamation mark, used in the Bible in the context of extreme judgment from God. And speaking of Revelation 9:11, the events of 9/11 in 2001 were exactly 188 years after the only other time that a foreign enemy attacked the nation's capital, when the British landed at Washington's Mount Vernon estate, before then proceeding to burn down the Capitol building and the White House, but not before Dolly Madison famously rescued the portrait of George Washington. From the Prince of Pop directed We Are the World. I mean, he was the man behind it all, right? The Prince of Pop. I mean, he wrote most of the song and organized it and everything, right? Quincy Jones was involved in the production as well, as was Lionel Richie. But the Prince of Pop was the main guy. So the Prince of Pop directed We Are the World recording on January 28th, 1985. Is 41 years to the release of Prince Charles's documentary, Finding Harmony, A King's Vision. The word key is equal to 41 in simple English gematria. In Bible prophecy, it is a key that will open the bottomless pit. Out of the bottomless pit will arise King Apollyon, Revelation 9:11. The symbol of the Vatican is keys. Exactly 1,190 days after the release of Prince Charles's movie Finding Harmony, A King's Vision, as in Prince of Pop, King Apollyon, will be the resurrection of Pope Francis at the Vatican when the key opens the bottomless pit on May 2nd, 2029. Right? 1,190 days hints at Revelation 9:11. In Revelation 9:11, King Apollyon rises out of the bottomless pit after it is opened with a key. The day of the King's Vision release, of Prince Charles's movie, will be the resurrection of Pope Francis, the Prince, in Daniel chapter 9, at the Vatican, which is symbolized by keys. When the key, the metaphorical key, opens the bottomless pit on May 2nd, 2029. Pope Francis is the prince, quote unquote, to come that is described in the book of Daniel as being the Antichrist who will propose harmony and peace. Hence the connection to Prince Charles and the Prince of Pop here, the 41 years apart, 41 being key symbolizing the Vatican, Pope Francis rising from the dead through demonic power after the demons come out of the bottomless pit, led by King Apollyon, Revelation 9:11, hence the 1,190 days to the resurrection of Pope Francis. Do you see? It's amazing. Now, by the way, this is one of the Old Testament Bible prophecies that make it more than clear, crystal clear, that a pope is the Antichrist. But we know which one specifically. It's Pope Francis. Okay, now, what am I talking about? Well, in Daniel chapter 9, we have the period of the 69 weeks that leads to the death of the Messiah, as it says in the prophecy. Okay. And then it says, the prince who is to come, and it's referring to the Antichrist described in the verse after this. The prince who is to come in the Bible, the prince is not meaning a son of a king, but a ruler. The prince who is to come is of the people of the Romans. The prince who is to come is of the people who will destroy the city and the sanctuary, as the prophecy says. The prince who is to come is of the people who will destroy the city and the sanctuary. Well, shortly after the Messiah was put to death, as it's described right before that, in the very verse prior to that, Shortly after the Messiah is put to death, the temple and the city were destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. The prince who is to come, the ruler of the people who are to come that will destroy the city and the sanctuary. In other words, the ruler who will come, the Antichrist who is to come, will be a ruler of the Romans. The emperors became popes. The Pope is the ruler of the Romans, of Rome, for many centuries, until Napoleon's general stripped the Pope of their temporal powers, leaving them only with spiritual powers, and that was in the late 18th century. Okay? But for centuries before that, the popes had real power. They were the leaders of Rome. And they still are, spiritually. It's referring, obviously, okay? If you don't see that, no offense, but you're a fool. Okay? Because it's very clear. Sorry. But we need to, call a spade here, because we need people to know who the Antichrist is. And if you insist on playing the Antichrist guessing game and saying to yourself that this isn't clear because of your false interpretation of 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, which you need to adhere to because of your salvation doctrine, then I'm sorry for you, but you are a fool and you are misleading people. The man who is sitting in the seat in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 is the Pope. The seat is the symbol of Rome, of the Pope, the seat of Peter. Of course, Peter was never in Rome, but it's still the seat of Peter that's the symbol of the Pope. Anyway, the question is, if Paul was referring to the Holy Spirit as to the he and the what that was holding back the Antichrist, why did he refer to it as a he and a what if it's the Holy Spirit? Why did he do that? And why did he speak cryptically? Why didn't he just speak plainly? And why did he tell the Thessalonians in that chapter that they knew what he was talking about? Why would he say that and then speak cryptically? Well, the reason for doing that was obviously because had he spoken plainly, it would have put anyone in possession of the letter in danger. Because he was referring as to the he and the what that was holding back the Antichrist, as the what being Rome and the he, the emperor of the Rome at the time, Constantine, who moved the capital of Rome to Constantinople, thus getting out of the way that was holding back the Antichrist, the bishops of Rome, who after the emperor left, filled the vacuum and rose in power. The bishops of Rome. Had it not been for the emperor moving everything away from Rome, the bishops of Rome could never have become popes and the leader of Rome at the same time as being the spiritual leader. This is what was holding back the Antichrist. The emperor's capital and the emperor, the he and the what. Okay? And the Protestant reformers knew this. But it's been lost conveniently in the last 50 years because of the rise of the heretical doctrine, which, by the way, is the doctrine that Jesus said he hates, and is coming to make war with the sword of his mouth on those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. The Nicolaitan doctrine of our day is this doctrine that has the people interpret the Holy Spirit, which is dispensationalism. The package that free grace or cheap grace or once saved, always saved comes in. The Nicolaitan doctrine of our day that Jesus said he hates and is coming to make war with those that teach and have the works that are a product of this doctrine. And I know far more than you the reason and purpose for this prediction that is from God. It is to prove the controversial things that I have just said. There is no debate. Do you understand? There's no debate. It is the Nicolaitan doctrine of our day, and I do not care to elaborate any more on this at this time, because I've done so countless times in other videos. But if you are a Christian, I highly recommend for you the 23 church signs video on this channel. The date of Pope Francis's predicted resurrection on May 2nd, 2029 had already been recognized before this 1190 days connection was discovered from January 28th. Okay? We have the king's, vision, Prince Charles, Prince Antichrist, monarchy of Rome, you get it. Now, again, the 1190 days is Revelation 9:11, King Apollyon, which is symbolism for the coming resurrection of Pope Francis from the dead through demonic power after the demons and King Apollyon rise from the bottomless pit after it's opened with the key. Again, that's the reason for the movie being released on the 41st anniversary of We Are the World. Okay, you got it. I've already explained it all. Okay. Now, the date, May 2nd, 2029, was first recognized through the 23-year-old Patriots quarterback named May, as in the month of May, and his victory on January 25th that led his team to the Super Bowl, which is Super Bowl 60, 2 times 30, that will be played in San Francisco, as in Pope Francis. The name May hints at the month of May. May's victory that led the Patriots to their third Super Bowl without Tom Brady and Bill Belichick was 3 days before the premiere of King Charles III's documentary, A King's Vision. 3 days after May led the Patriots to the team's third Super Bowl without Belichick was the day of King Charles III's movie release and the day that the NFL Football Hall of Fame released a statement regarding the snubbing of Bill Belichick in the voting of this year's entries to the Hall of Fame. It is somewhat of a scandal, and Trump, God's trumpet for prophetic signs, trumpeted about the snubbing of Belichick on the same day, January 28th. This is an important date, as we can see here. More is going on than simply the release of the King Charles's movie, King Charles III's movie, 3 days after the Patriots made the Super Bowl. For the third time without Bill Belichick, and this is the day that Belichick, big story, biggest sports story, news story on this day, how he was snubbed by the NFL Hall of Fame. All right, now, the snubbing of Belichick was 3 days after May led the Patriots to their third Super Bowl without Belichick. On the day of the snubbing of Belichick, Yahoo Sports published an article that lists the 23 of the 50 Hall of Fame voters that have confirmed that they voted yes to Belichick entering the Hall of Fame. The 23-year-old May led the Patriots to the Super Bowl 2 times 30. And again, this article talks about the 23 that confirmed they voted yes. So, and this is Super Bowl 60, and Belichick won 6 Super Bowls with the Patriots. For Belichick to be snubbed, it is required that there at least be 11 of the 50 voters to vote no on Belichick. The snubbing of Belichick on January 28th is 11 days before the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 2 times 30. This hints at 1123, which is the 188th prime number, which hints at again, H188, whoa, exclamation mark. And again, this date is 1,088 days before the return to the White House of the basketball president who wore jersey number 23. As in the 23-year-old who won the game to get the Patriots to the 2 times 30 Super Bowl 1,088 days before the basketball president who wore number 23 returns to the White House. A big whoa, exclamation mark. Judgment from God. Obama announced in Chicago that he would run to become the first black president just days after Super Bowl 41 involving Chicago, which was the first Super Bowl in which both head coaches, were black, as in the first black president. Okay, so that's not a coincidence. That's from God. The first all-black coached Super Bowl was just a few days, less than a week, before the announcement of the first black president, that he would run for the presidency. He announced in Chicago, and this Super Bowl I'm talking about involved Chicago. And by the way, Chicago, that's the only time in between 1986 and today that Chicago was in the Super Bowl. It's not like they're in the Super Bowl every year. In fact, it's the only one since 86, which was also extremely prophetic, which, by the way, was the 85 Bears, the year that Obama moved to Chicago. Anyway, the snubbing of Belichick, the coach with the most Super Bowl wins, was on the 41st anniversary of We Are the World. You know what? Why not? Just for fun. The Chicago Bears, the 85 Bears, were the first Chicago professional sports team to... They began the 30-year cycle, exactly 30 years, in which all of the major sports teams in Chicago won their championships. And in the case of Chicago, the Blackhawks, the White Sox, and the Cubs, maybe even the Bulls, I forget, all of them ended long, prophetic, or sports championship droughts. I think maybe all of the cases they're considered to be curses, which hints at the Antichrist curse. But anyway, so this 30-year cycle began when Obama moved to Chicago and ended 4 days before he left office in Washington, when the Chicago Cubs visited him at the White House 4 days before he left office, and the star player number 44 presented Obama jersey number 44 4 days before he left office, the 44th president. That star player's name is Rizzo, which is Italian for rice, and Obama will control the food supply, as I mentioned earlier. Anyway, the reason for the 30-year cycle from 86 to 2016 is because 30 years in the Bible symbolizes a king, as in the king Antichrist. Okay, so I just thought I'd throw that in there. That also, in fact, supports the prophetic significance of Obama moving to Chicago in 85 after the May 19th Communist Organization was disbanded. All right. Back to what I was saying, though, about Super Bowl 41 involving Chicago just being days before the first black president, as in first Super Bowl with all black coaches, and both teams wore all black shoes with black laces. Okay, anyway, the snubbing of Belichick, the coach with the most Super Bowl wins, was on the 41st anniversary of We Are the World. Okay, and that hints at this Super Bowl 41. Now, a song that was arranged by the Prince of Pop, who was born and lived in and grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, and he grew up at 2300 Jackson Street, which hints at the president from Chicago who wore number 23. Along with the GOAT, greatest of all time, GOAT Antichrist, Michael Jordan, who also wore number 23 while playing basketball in Chicago. This 11 days connection between Belichick's snubbing and the Patriots' Super Bowl this year is truly astounding, because the Patriots are all about the number 11 in God's signs. Okay? The Patriots are by far the most important team in God's prophetic signs, and sports are extremely important in God's signs in general. Okay, because the New England Patriots symbolize the spiritual founding of America. Now, so the Patriots are all about the number 11, all right? This is why the 11 days connection between Belichick's snubbing and the Patriots' Super Bowl. Okay? And so, okay. This is why the MVP in their last Super Bowl was player number 11, the fact that the Patriots are all about number 11 is why in the Patriots' last Super Bowl in 2019, the MVP was player number 11. The wide receiver, player number 11, totaled 141 passing yards in that Super Bowl 53. 141 is the 4 times 4th super semi-prime number, a number that is only divisible by 2 other prime numbers, and 53, as in Super Bowl 53, is the 4 times 4th prime number, as in the 44th president. But the reason for MVP number 11 and the Patriots being associated with the number 11 is Flight 11 was the first of 4 planes that crashed on 9/11. The fourth plane crash killed 44 people in a 40-acre pit 40 plus 40 miles outside of Pittsburgh, as in the 44th president, as in the bottomless pit, as in King Apollyon, as in the Antichrist King. Okay, on the date 1/11, another example, on the date, and the reason for that is that Flight 11 originated in Boston, where the Patriots play. That's why number 11 here, because the flights that flew into the towers, including the first one, Flight 11, originated from New England, Boston, where the Patriots play. The reason for that is they departed from Governor's Island, where the first governor lived, John Winthrop, who was the Puritan who led the 11-ship flotilla to the New World and founded the Massachusetts Bay Colony. They did that after the Mayflower, which arrived with 101 passengers, another 11. The Mayflower took 66 days to cross the Atlantic because of a storm, and 66 is the 11th triangular number. Okay, that's why the New England Patriots are all about the number 11, because the Patriots is, again, as I mentioned, symbolize the spiritual founding of America, and Flight 11 was a warning of this. Now, on the date 1/11, which obviously hints at 11, 1 year after player number 11 for the Boston team won the MVP, this same player 11 was upset and drunk after losing a playoff game and was arrested in Los Angeles at 9 p.m. for vandalism. So player number 11 from Boston was arrested in Los Angeles at 9 p.m., as in 9/11. The planes that rammed into the 2 towers on 9/11 were flights from Boston to Los Angeles. That's why player number 11, on this date that hints at the number 11, was arrested at 9 p.m. in Los Angeles, and he played for Boston. The planes were from Boston to Los Angeles on 9/11. Number 11, and he was upset and drunk after they lost the playoff game. Ties back to the Patriots. Okay, number 11 was the MVP of the Super Bowl between the Patriots, Boston, and Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Rams. And that Super Bowl, in which Tom Brady went into with 17 Super Bowl records, was 17 years after the Patriots' first Super Bowl win that was against the Rams. That was right after 9/11, and was known for its last-minute winning drive from the Patriots' 17-yard line with the score tied at 17-17, which hinted at the 2 planes, including Flight 11, that rammed, as in the Rams, the 2 towers 17 minutes apart on 9/11. Okay? So, again, the first Super Bowl Patriots win was against the Rams, and it was known for the 17-yard line last-minute drive with the score tied at 17-17. And they won the game as time expired with the field goal with 7 seconds remaining, and 17 is the 7th prime number. And then 17 years later, Tom Brady went into the Super Bowl with 17 Super Bowl records. And again, it was against the Rams, which hints at the two Super Bowls against the Rams and the Patriots hint at the 2 planes from Boston to Los Angeles 17 minutes apart. That's why the 2 Patriots-Rams Super Bowls were 17 years apart. By the way, also, Belichick and Brady It was their 9th out of the 11 Super Bowls that the Patriots had been in history. Okay, now Bill Belichick was fired as the Patriots head coach on the date 11/11, on a different year. Another 11. That was a massive sign because it symbolized a judgment on America, the head coach of the Patriots being fired on this day. God firing America, if you will. Most importantly, the Brady-Belichick run of Super Bowl victories began when Brady replaced star quarterback number 11 after he was rammed by a New York Jet linebacker in a game that was 12 days after 9/11, and Brady, who replaced this player, wore number 12. That was the beginning of the Brady career, and the rest is history. Brady went on to become the greatest NFL player of all time, the GOAT, but he was never supposed to be a starting quarterback. The reason why he got an opportunity is because the star player, number 11, Bledsoe, got rammed by a New York Jet 12 days after 9/11, when the Jets rammed the towers in New York. The name Bledsoe hints at how he almost bled to death. Literally, he almost died, but it wasn't known that he almost died until after the game from internal bleeding. But he got rammed so hard. Anyway, he was out for the rest of the season, and that allowed the opportunity for Brady, which was extremely prophetic. In other words, what I'm saying is it all goes back to Brady replacing number 11. That's why I say, most importantly, it all begins with the injury of player number 11 here, which allowed for Brady to then that year go on to win the Super Bowl for the Patriots, and then go on to be in a total of 9 Super Bowls with the Patriots. Okay. As has now been explained, this 11 days connection between Belichick's snubbing and the Super Bowl points to Flight 11 on 9/11, right? The Belichick snubbing, 11 days connection here from Belichick's snubbing to the Patriots being in the Super Bowl again, hints at 9/11, as I just explained, right? Because the Patriots are all about the number 11 and Flight 11 on 9/11 that departed Boston. And again, the 11 days also connects to the Super Bowl 2 times 30, which gives us 1123, which hints at whoa exclamation mark, as I explained. The 188th prime number. Now, the reason for the prophetic significance of Flight 11 that departed from Boston is that the airport is located on Governor's Island, where the first governor of Massachusetts lived. Winthrop, John Winthrop, led the initial 11-ship flotilla of Puritans to the New World, who founded the Massachusetts Bay Colony, which was a religious community that was the spiritual founding of America. Winthrop's City on a Hill speech before they departed their ships was derived from into the Promised Land, was derived from the book of Deuteronomy and echoed God's promises of either blessings or curses for the Israelites before they entered their new Promised Land. The Puritans saw their crossing of the Atlantic as analogous to the crossing of the Jordan River by the Israelites into the Promised Land. The New World was their Promised Land for the Puritans. And the Israelites were escaping religious persecution from the king of Egypt. Likewise, the Puritans were escaping religious persecution from the king of England. The reason for the number 11 is symbolic of reflection and contrasting promises of either blessings or curses for his Gentile nation, America, based on whether or not they obeyed his commandments, which was a parallel with Deuteronomy, because before they went into the Promised Land, God listed for them promises of curses or blessings, a reflection, which is what the number 11 symbolizes. Now, what's interesting is that one of the curses that were promised to the Israelites is that they would, if they disobeyed God and his commandments, they would walk on iron under a sky of bronze, which completely describes 9/11 after Flight 11. People were literally walking on iron under a sky of bronze. also preceding that verse, a part of that in context is a swooping down of an eagle. The flight was an American Eagle flight, and it had a big eagle painted on its tail, and so the eagle was swooping down into the tower in order to create the iron ground and the bronze sky. Yes, that's right. When the Israelites took the promised land, they blew trumpets before the walls of security of Jericho collapsed in God's judgment. On 9/11, Trump famously called into Channel 9 News and inadvertently trumpeted that his tower on Wall Street had become the tallest tower in Lower Manhattan after the 110-story Twin Towers had collapsed. Trump trumpeted the snubbing of the Patriots coach Bill Belichick 11 days before the Patriots Super Bowl in the 11th prime number state. The Patriots symbolize America, and Trump is the leader of America. Joshua led the Israelites when they blew trumpets, and he died at the age of 110, which is at 110 stories on 9/11 with Flight 11, and 110 hints at 11. The New York Stock Exchange is located on Wall Street in Lower Manhattan, where Trump's tower is located. Trump trumpeted his tower on 40 Wall Street on 9/11 when he called in to the Channel 9 News. At the same time that Trump trumpeted the snubbing of Belichick, 11 days before the Super Bowl in the 11th prime number state, he criticized the NFL's new 40-yard line kickoff rule. Okay, so you see here, okay, Trump trumpeted his tower at 40 Wall Street on 9/11 inadvertently. And here he trumpeted when talking about Belichick, as in the Patriots and the number 11 days before the Super Bowl when the Patriots will be in the 11th prime number state. Okay, but he also at the same time trumpeted against the 40-yard line kickoff rule, as in the 40 Wall Street tower, which hinted at his trumpeting of his tower at 40 Wall Street after Flight 11 crashed into the North Tower, right? So from the 40-yard line kickoff rule criticism, it's 11 days. Well, on 9/11, he talked about 40 Wall Street, and that was after Flight 11. And it crashed into the North Tower. Trump trumpeted the snubbing of Belichick 11 days before the Patriots Super Bowl in the 11th prime number state. And this was also 9 days before it is predicted that the main stock indexes of the New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street will reach their all-time peak highs and begin their biggest crashes in all of history. Right? So in other words, Trump trumpeted about Belichick, which hinted at 9/11, as I've now explained thoroughly in different ways. He trumpeted this 9 days and also 11 days before the predicted beginning of the stock market crash and the Patriots Super Bowl. The stock market crash on Wall Street, where the events of 9/11 took place. And literally ground zero was near or next to Wall Street, but the collapse of the 110-story towers engendered a small earthquake that cracked the foundation of Federal Hall on Wall Street, where George Washington was inaugurated. As explained in a prior email, this year's Patriots Super Bowl points back 7 years to the 2019 Super Bowl, in which player number 11 was the MVP, and that Super Bowl in turn points back 17 years to the Super Bowl after 9/11, in which the Patriots won their first Super Bowl. So it all is 9/11, but this is an amazing thing here, okay? Because, so Trump trumpeted 40 Wall Street, but Wall Street was also named after the 9-foot-high wall of security, and Trump trumpeted this when he called into Channel 9 News, the 9-foot-high wall of security that the Dutch built to keep the British and the Indians out. But he called into Channel 9 News and then trumpeted his tower on Wall Street, which is named after the 9-foot-high wall. So that was a 9/11, right? And that was obviously after the 110 stories fell, which makes it a 9/11 right there too. But then from Trump's trumpeting here with Belichick which is all about 9/11, as I've now explained, is 9 days before the coming predicted collapse on Wall Street. And he called into Channel 9 News and talked about his tower on Wall Street on 9/11. That's confirmation for the 9 days here, okay? That makes this from God. I've explained it clearly enough. Trump's trumpet of Belichick and the 40-yard line rule, as in the 40 Wall Street Tower, gives us 9 days, because Wall Street's named after the 9-foot-high wall of security, and he called into Channel 9 News when he talked about the 40 Wall Street Tower. That gives us 9 days to the predicted peak on Wall Street and subsequent crash, as in the planes that crashed on 9/11. That's why also from this day it's 9, but it's also 11 days to the Super Bowl. So 9 and 11 days, that hints at 9/11, and Trump is a big part of the prophetic signs on 9/11, because he trumpeted 9/11 when he called into Channel 9 News and trumpeted Wall Street, because the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment after the Israelites blew trumpets. I'll give you another thing here too. They trumpeted with 7 trumpets. They enacted a symbolic 3 sets of 7 before the walls of security collapsed. They marched around the walls of security of Jericho once per day for 7 days, and then on the 7th day, they marched around 7 times while blowing 7 trumpets. It was a 3 sets of 7. Trump was inaugurated. God trumpeted Trump on his inauguration day when there was a very light rain, which in the Bible symbolizes God's blessing, during his speech, and only during his speech. Trump on that day was 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old exactly. 3 sets of 7. It was in the year ending in 7, and it was 73 days, which hints at 3 sets of 7, after he won the election by 77 electoral votes. And on the day that he won by 77 electoral votes, the leader of Israel, as in the leader of the Israelites, Joshua, who died at the age of 110, as in 110 stories on 9/11, Benjamin Netanyahu, on the day that Trump was inaugurated or elected by 77 electoral votes, Netanyahu had been in office for exactly 7 years, 7 months, and 7 days. And then Trump, 73 days later, was inaugurated at 70 years, 7 months, and 7 days old. But exactly 73 weeks before Trump won the election by 77 electoral votes was the day that he descended the golden escalator that started everything. And that day was exactly 188 months, as in woe exclamation mark, after the 7.0 earthquake in Joshua Tree, California. As in the 7 trumpets led by Joshua when the walls of security collapsed. By the way, due to an earthquake. Archaeology proves that. Jericho's walls collapsed due to an earthquake. Okay. So, in other words, I am predicting the stock market peak, and when it does, on February 6th, and then crashes, in its biggest crash in history, it'll prove everything that I've just said. All of the profound, there's no word for it. No words can describe how profound what I've just been explaining over the last minutes is. Okay. Now, obviously, make sure you pass this video on, because nowhere else is there an explanation for the history of the Patriots and the meaning behind 9/11 and Trump and everything like you've heard here. Okay. And also the spiritual founding of America, furthermore. And therefore America. Do you realize how important this video is when the prediction comes to pass? If you are a Christian, please understand, it is your obligation. You don't have a choice. I don't like to say it that way, but I know that there are a lot of lazy, quote-unquote, Christians. But you don't have a choice. Never, ever, ever, ever stop promoting this channel. Share this link to this video or another video on this channel everywhere you go, and don't ever stop. This channel is from God, not that others aren't. But this is something of a different degree, and I think you should appreciate that. You should be able to appreciate that. This is a prediction. This is prophecy from God here that's going on in this video. And be warned, Jesus' parable to Christians about the bags of gold and the one servant, a Christian, that did nothing with his bag of gold. This video and this prediction is a massive bag of gold. That's why I say you are obligated. You don't have a choice. You are obligated to work with this and share it everywhere you go. And don't just share it to the channels you go to all the time and preach to the choir. Go to places you never go. Go to the enemy's channels, for example. Do whatever you got to do. Get creative. Think of ways to share the link to this video. All right. Now, as explained in a prior email, this year's Patriots Super Bowl points back 7 years to the, I already did that, okay. At the time of the Belichick snubbing and Trump's trumpet regarding the matter, 11 days before the appearance of the 11th prime number state in the Super Bowl, 11 days, okay, sorry. At the time of Belichick's snubbing and Trump's trumpet regarding the matter, I'm getting a little tired now, as you can imagine. 11 days before the Patriots' appearance in the 11th prime number state in the Super Bowl, the Patriots' charter plane named Aircraft was in the news. Aircraft is named after the owner of the Patriots and friend of Trump, Robert Kraft, and it was chartered by the U.S. military to transport, quote, at least a dozen, unquote, Marines to Norway. The prophetic story of the Patriots centers on player number 12. Okay? Tom Brady. The central focus of the story of the prophetic Patriots is Tom Brady, who was or is number 12, which is a dozen. The story of this plane, this story is of particular interest because of Trump's ambition to take Greenland, which has been a top international news story in recent days. Okay, so when the news broke about the plane transporting Marines to Norway, it wasn't just another story about that. It was a bigger story because of the irony or the fact that Greenland is a big part of the news these days, and Norway is very close to Greenland. So that's why this story became bigger than it otherwise would have been. Now, Greenland hints at the color green, which is the fourth color of the rainbow. The Patriots won their first Super Bowl with a field goal at the end of the fourth quarter with the fourth prime number of seconds remaining. 7, which is the fourth prime number. It was at the end of the fourth quarter, and the field goal was kicked by player number 4, the GOAT, greatest of all time, as in GOAT Antichrist, of kicking, who won 4 Super Bowls in his career. By the way, his fourth one was when Indianapolis beat Chicago in that Super Bowl 41 that I mentioned earlier. This was Tom Brady's first Super Bowl win. His first start as the Patriots quarterback was a game against the Colts earlier that season, in which the Patriots scored 44 points. In Tom Brady's very first game as a starter, his team scored 44 points against the Colts. A colt is a type of horse. And of course, the 44th president, the American pharaoh, is Barack Obama, who went down to Egypt. Anyway, this Super Bowl will be played in will be played in the 31st state, and Isaiah 31, woe to those who go down to Egypt and rely on horses. All right, well, anyway, a colt is a type of horse. Tom Brady scored 44 points against the Colts in his first game. That season ended with the fourth prime number second remaining field goal in the fourth quarter by player number 4, who went on to win 4 Super Bowls. All right, now the fourth horse of the apocalypse is the green horse. And green is also the fourth color of the rainbow. But in the book of Revelation, the fourth of four horses is the fourth horse. By the way, the four horses are hinted at with the four planes on 9/11. The Patriots aircraft plane that transported at least 12 Marines, as in player number 12, Tom Brady, who was as cool as a Marine in the winning drive from the 17-yard line with the score tied at 17-17 in his first Super Bowl. He was as cool as a Marine. The sports announcers, John Madden, even commented on as such, how this guy was just so cool. No pressure, like he wasn't even in the Super Bowl. All right, now, so that's why the parallel with Marines here, the 12 Marines, the dozen Marines, to Norway near Greenland, and is hinted at Flight 11 that rammed the North Tower, which is what Norway hints at, and the fourth plane that killed 44 people, as in the 44 points scored in Tom Brady's first game and season that ended with the player before kicking the field goal in the fourth quarter. You get it, the idea. Greenland being the green color, the fourth color of the rainbow, and the fourth horse, the green horse. All right. Now, again, the 12 Marines hints at Tom Brady. Because it's the Patriots plane, Tom Brady was number 12. But he was as cool as a Marine in the 9/11 Super Bowl. And on 9/11, it was Flight 11 that rammed the North Tower, which is what is hinted at in this story with Norway. Okay, you get the idea now, right? The fourth horse, Brady's first game against the Colts was 44 points. The fourth horse of the apocalypse is the horse, the green horse, of pestilence and disease. The COVID shot said to counter the pestilence is the mark of the Antichrist, and it causes BLOOD disease. G131 in the Greek concordance for the Bible is the word that means blood disease. Trump's trumpeting of Belichick's snubbing at the time of the news story about the Patriots plane in Norway near Greenland is exactly 131 weeks before it is predicted that a plane crash will clear the way for the return of the 44th president to the White House. Not only that, the plane will crash in St. Louis, which will hint at the eclipse over St. Louis that was passed over 7 years later with another eclipse that engendered an X over America. And the middle date of the two eclipses is the date of the first COVID shot. And the X in God's signs is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. Trump's trumpet of the snubbing of Belichick was also the day of the premiere of King Charles's documentary, and as explained, this pointed to Pope Francis, the monarch of Rome. Trump's trumpet regarding Patriots coach Belichick is 11 days before the Patriots Super Bowl in the 11th prime number state in the city of San Francisco, as in Pope Francis, which hints at Pope Francis. Francis is the Antichrist king, as in King Charles, who will enforce the mark of the Antichrist that causes blood disease. King Charles III's movie points to Pope Francis, and the MVP of this year's Super Bowl is predicted to be Seattle Seahawks quarterback number 14. This gives us 3 and 14. Pope Francis's successor is the third pope inaugurated this century, Leo XIV. King Charles III and Leo XIV prayed together in October last year. That's another thing. Anyway, exactly 131 weeks, as in G131, blood disease after King Charles III's movie, is predicted the date of the crash of the plane on its way to the 31st state that will be transporting the 40th governor of California. That gives us another 314, 31st state, 40th governor, and Kamala Harris. Both of whom are from San Francisco. their plane is predicted to crash in the area code 314 and into Bush Stadium. This will hint at the burning bush in Exodus 3:14, in which God says his name to Moses, I am, and the symbol for I am in Hebrew is the exact same symbol for pi, which is 3.14, which is why it is astounding and therefore from God that I am is in Exodus 3:14. The Antichrist is described in Isaiah 31:4. The area code 314 in St. Louis is St. Louis, and this rhymes with St. Francis, whom Pope Francis is named after. In God's signs, the New England Patriots are the most important sports team, as the Patriots symbolize America, the snubbing God's Gentile nation, and Israel. There are only two nations in the history of the world that were founded on a relationship with God in the Bible: Israel and America. Sometimes someone will ask in the comments or something, why are you always so focused on America in God's prophetic signs? And the answer is because God is. All of God's signs revolve around America, or if not, Rome, or sometimes the UK, because America is the spiritual daughter of the UK. It's not the spiritual daughter, but the cultural daughter of the UK. Anyway, God is focused on America. It's his Israel. It's the modern day Israel. It's un-Israel, a chosen nation. Anti-Americanism is rooted spiritually in rebellion against God. That's the truth of the matter. And that's why the left and the communists want to bring down America and make it something that it never was, and something new. But they don't even want to make something new. They just want to destroy. That's the truth. And that's because they're full of hate. And that's the truth also. Anyone that is bitter or resentful of America has bitterness and hatred in their soul. That's the spiritual truth. I've experienced this all throughout my life. I know this. This concept of this phenomenon of anti-Americanism is by far one of the most interesting things that is the thread throughout my life. I find it more than fascinating. It's actually brought me to God and the truth about God and the Bible. Anti-Americanism is a big factor in me coming to the truth about the Bible. Like, maybe the biggest factor. I'm not sure. I have to think about that. And this is all enabled through God's design for my life, personally. He had me born on the other side of the border in the 51st state of Canada to be in an environment rife with anti-Americanism. In the modern, secular, liberal world we live in which the majority of Canadians are liberal lefties, anti-Americanism is rife. And it even is so rife that it, from time to time, bleeds over into right of center circles. But my entire adult life was spent being an entrepreneur in the US and suffering because of that and not being able to be legal and doing things legally and always being paranoid about whether my whole life would fall apart every time I needed to, not even more than just every time that I needed to cross the border. And yet at the same time, I would be witness to all kinds of people from all over the world that didn't deserve to be in America and weren't Americans be there legally. Tragic. The most American person, one of the most Americans of Americans is myself. I can say that. America isn't about even being an American. It's about what America is and its values. And it's, it's not to be proud of myself in any way, but I deserved to be an American. And anyway, because of this window and this life that I had lived, I was forced to confront and appreciate, and also being who I am intellectually, just being interested in things. This anti-Americanism and the roots of it go back to, the current Civil War, the baby boomer generation breaking off into two camps, all kinds of things. But what's fascinating and beautiful in a way is to see how it all comes full circle and how it's all rooted in the Bible. It's all rooted in this purpose of life. Anti-Americanism is a manifestation of rebellion against God, which is irrational, as is anti-Americanism. Yeah. Okay. And anti-Americanism is the root of anti-Trumpism, by the way. God is a master of everything, and he's designed Trump to not be obvious that what I've just stated. Trump and who he is, his personality, everything has been beautifully orchestrated by God to be something that only the wise can understand and appreciate. The secular left person will not be able to see the truth, and that's designed by God. Because as Jesus said and warned, to judge rightly and not by appearances. And that's why Trump has his personality, and the man that they love, Obama, has his personality. It's to fool them. It's designed to fool them, the left. Obama is the Antichrist, and Trump is God's trumpet. But if you don't have wisdom and you aren't right with God, you'll never see that. And you will fall for the propaganda that is ultimately from Satan. In God's signs, the New England Patriots are the most important sports team, as the Patriots symbolize America. The snubbing of the head coach of the New England Patriots from the Hall of Fame, is a profound prophetic sign that symbolizes God snubbing America. The Hall of Fame is recognition of achievement and performance. The Patriots leader not getting recognized with the prestigious honor is symbolic of America, God's Gentile nation, being in poor standing and without honor. On 9/11, Flight 11 flew into the North Tower before the second plane struck the South Tower 17 minutes later. Belichick was fired on the date 1/11, 2 years and 17 days before he was snubbed by the Hall of Fame. This hinted at Flight 11 crashing into the North Tower before the second plane struck the South Tower 17 minutes later. That's amazing. Yes, he was snubbed and fired 2 years and 17 days apart. That's astounding because, again, the Patriots are all about 9/11. The two towers were struck 17 minutes apart. By the way, why were they two towers struck with two planes 17 minutes apart? It's the same reason that the two space shuttle disasters were almost exactly 17 years apart. In fact, it's just a couple days off, and they are commemorated every year on the same date. Well, the two space shuttle disasters were exactly 17 years apart because the last time that an American was on the moon was Apollo 17. The moon symbolizes Christ. It is a giant rock. And in the Bible, rock is symbolism for Jesus. The sun's light is too bright for us to gaze at, and it symbolizes God the Father. But we can gaze at the sun's light reflected off of the moon. In the Bible, watching for the timing of the moon is important, and this is why watching for the timing of the Lord's return through prophetic signs, including moon signs, is prophetic and important. Flight 17 was the time that the last American departed the moon, which is symbolic of America's departure from Christ. That's why exactly 24 plus 24 years later, because G, 2424 in the Greek concordance is the word for Jesus, exactly 24 plus 24 years after the last American departed the moon, which symbolized America's departure from Christ, was the first day that the first American took the mark of the Antichrist, on December 14th, 2020. The CVD disease thing, which was the middle date of the eclipses. And the eclipses engendered an X, and an X is all about the middle point. The two lines that cross each other in the middle is what makes an X. Hence, the middle date being the mark of the Antichrist, and again, the X is symbolic of the mark of the Antichrist. So, anyway, that's why, I just thought I'd add that. We got the 2 years and 17 days, an amazing connection between the firing and the snubbing of Bill Belichick, the head coach of the New England Patriots. And again, the Patriots they won the Super Bowl after 9/11 when the two planes struck the two towers 17 minutes apart, which ultimately hinted at Apollo 17. By the way, the Apollo missions began with Apollo 11, the first landing on the moon, Christ. Apollo 11 is why Flight 11 began the events of 9/11. The moon missions began with Flight 11 and ended with Apollo 11 and ended with Apollo 17. The 9/11 events began with Flight 11, and then 17 minutes later, the second plane at the second tower, which confirmed, which is what's required in the Bible, a second witness, that the first plane was not an accident, but an act of terrorism, and therefore an act of God and judgment on America by this destruction from the enemies of America, as described in Isaiah 9:11. And in every 365-day Bible, including for Catholics, this is standard, every reading that's divided to one reading per day per 365 days in a year, every reading on September 11th includes the passage Isaiah 9:11, which says the bricks have fallen, the trees have been uprooted, and the bricks have fallen, but we will rebuild. It's 9/11. That's another subject that I've explained many times. And for which Jonathan Cahn has written a bestseller about, if you're interested. Belichick was fired by Robert Kraft on the date 1/11. Trump, God's trumpet, trumpeted regarding the snubbing of the Patriots coach 9 days before the predicted peak of the stock market on Wall Street, named after the 9-foot-high wall of security in lower Manhattan, before its biggest crash in history. Belichick's firing on 1/11 and his snubbing 9 days before the predicted stock market peak on Wall Street, named after the 9-foot-high wall of security, hints at the events of 9/11 in lower Manhattan. Before the walls of security collapsed on Jericho in the Bible, the Israelites blew 7 trumpets. On the day that Trump trumpeted the Patriots coach, the main stock index on Wall Street passed above the 7,000 level for the first time. So trumpet, 7 trumpets, 7,000 level, Trump trumpeting the Patriots coach, which is all about 9/11. And the market crashing from its heights, as in the 7,000 level, as in the planes crashing at a height. This confirms that Trump's trumpet of the Patriots coach is a 9/11 sign that also points to the predicted peak of the stock market on Wall Street before its collapse, which is symbolized by the collapse of the Twin Towers near Wall Street and the collapse of the walls of security of Jericho after the Israelites blew 7 trumpets. And Trump, his first presidency and election campaign, was synonymous with his border wall of security, which collapsed after he left office. And again, the trumpets were blown by the leader, Joshua, who is Trump. And also his second presidency is also about the border wall of security, but through the illegal aliens and the tariffs. Ultimately, those two things are about the border wall of security. And God designed borders as part of his divine plan. Every human being is made up of cells which are made up of borders to maintain their integrity. A human being cannot exist without its cells which have to maintain their integrity through borders. A nation cannot exist without a border, which is why Satan wants to bring down the border, which is why the Democrats who work for Satan want to bring down the border. In order to have their one-party state ruled by the Antichrist, the puppet for Satan, who the Democrats work for without realizing it. Bill Belichick was the leader of the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots symbolize America through the spiritual founding of America in New England. Joshua was the leader of the Israelites when they blew 7 trumpets before the walls of security collapsed in God's judgment. Joshua died at the age of 110. President Trump is the leader of America. After the 110-story towers collapsed in God's judgment, Trump called into Channel 9 News and inadvertently trumpeted his tower on Wall Street. Trump trumpeted the leader of the New England Patriots 9 days before the predicted beginning of the collapse of the stock market on Wall Street, named after the 9-foot-high wall of security. The snubbing of the leader of the Patriots is symbolic of a death. The leader of the Israelites died at the age of 110 after the walls collapsed, and Trump called into Channel 9 News after the collapse of 110 stories near Wall Street. Belichick was the leader of the Patriots in 9 Super Bowls, 6 of which the Patriots won, which is why his snubbing from the Hall of Fame is a news story. Trump's trumpet of the snubbing of the leader of the Patriots, who won 6 Super Bowls, symbolic of death, is exactly 130 weeks before it is predicted that Trump will die, and 13 is the 6th prime number, which is what the 130 weeks hints at. And that's all for this video. God bless. Believe me, I know far better than you how the prediction made in this video was derived. And more importantly, I know far better than you why the righteous Christian God of the Bible has given me a voice through this prediction. If you are a quote-unquote Christian or Muslim, this prediction was not learned through a demon. Be warned that blaspheming the Holy Spirit is the unforgivable sin. If you are a New Ager or New Spirituality person, this prediction was not learned through somehow tapping into the supposed universal collective consciousness. If you are a conspiracy theorist, this prediction was not learned through figuring out a supposed code that the Illuminati and Satanists are using. This prediction was learned through the Bible and through watching carefully the Lord's prophetic signs, which Jesus commanded all Christians to do. Besides proving that Jesus Christ is the Lord, the reason why God has given me a voice through this prediction is to prove that the controversial things that I am saying in the videos on this channel are the truth. Therefore, a wise person will want to watch all of the videos on this channel. What I will also do is create a video or two that summarizes some of the controversial things that the Lord will prove to be true when the prediction being made in this video comes to pass. I will leave links to these must-watch videos in the description box below this video. Again, the purpose of this prediction, that is from God, is to prove these things that I will talk about. And therefore, it would be foolish to not watch the videos that I will leave links for in the description box below this video. Aliens and UFOs are demons masquerading as aliens and UFOs. Most people's spiritual experiences are demonic deception, especially if they are not a true follower of Christ. In the last days, many people who claim to be a follower of Christ will have spiritual experiences that are in reality demonic. God became a man and died a horrible death at the hand of the ruler of this world, Satan, and then defeated death for you, so that you too can overcome death, which is the price that must be paid for sin. It is time to repent, which means to change one's ways and turn to God and become a disciple of Jesus. Do not listen to or follow the example of most quote-unquote Christians. Instead, follow the teachings of Jesus, which most quote-unquote Christians ignore. Like Jesus, you must surrender your life. Put nothing ahead of Jesus, your Lord. Like Jesus, you must lay down your life so that you may live. As Jesus said, one must die first, like a kernel of wheat going into the ground, in order to then grow and produce fruit. And like Jesus said, one must produce fruit, or else like a branch or a tree not producing fruit, they will be thrown into the fire. Jesus was speaking to quote-unquote Christians when he said this. One must die the self in order to be born again. And like Jesus said, one must be born again to enter the kingdom. Like Jesus, you must sacrifice your life for the sake of the coming kingdom. It means to do work that involves some form of sacrifice and risk. To have faith does not mean to intellectually agree. You need to demonstrate your faith through taking action. To have faith means to trust in God's promises. Taking action demonstrates trust and fear of the Lord. The primary reason that the wrath of God is coming upon America is quote-unquote Christians that do not get what I have just explained. The only reason a Christian is alive is in order to help other people become Christians and make it to the kingdom. Do not be deceived by those on the political left claiming to be quote-unquote Christians. There is no such thing as a Christian on today's political progressive left. Jesus said, "Do not think I have come to abolish or change any bit of the law or the prophets of the Old Testament Bible." In other words, the God of the Old Testament Bible is the exact same God of the New Testament Bible. It is essential that you learn about the God of the Bible and his ways. The God of the Old Testament Bible is looking to see who will fear him, and to fear God is not the same thing as quote-unquote revering or honoring God. Through Christ's ransom payment, a Christian is someone who has been redeemed and freed from slavery to sin and Satan. In response, a true Christian recognizes that their life in this world does not belong to them, and they become a willing slave to Jesus for the sake of the kingdom. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. And don't only put the link to this video or another video on this channel in comments sections of places you typically visit, but importantly, put the link to the video in places you never visit, where people who don't think like you visit. If you are a quote-unquote Christian, nothing in terms of an evangelism tool compares to this video with its prediction. It is a massive bag of gold. Beware of Jesus' warning through the quote-unquote Christian that did nothing with his bag of gold and was banished to hell. Also, read Ezekiel chapter 3 and 33 for this same warning. If you think you might be spending too much time watching videos instead of working and sacrificing for the kingdom through handing out flyers and potentially helping hundreds of people in the same length of time as a video, my flyer is filled with amazing information that people need to know right now, and it points people to the video channel. Now is not the time to be handing out typical evangelical tracts that are largely based in error anyway, such as, quote, Jesus loves you, unquote, for example. You can hand out the flyer on busy street corners, put them on car windshields in busy parking lots, and put them in mailboxes. Just send the file to your local print shop. You can download the file from the website. Please leave a like and upvote the video, and once this prediction has come to pass, share this video with everyone you know, and more, don't stop sharing it everywhere in social media. It is essential that everyone immediately read the homepage of my website, asteroidprediction.com. If you are watching this on the YouTube platform, please note that not all of the videos are on YouTube. You need to switch to the Odyssey.com or Rumble.com channel, and do it now in case you aren't able to later.